Hello and welcome back to episode 4 of our Behind the Rules video series. Today I'm joined by a regular host on the show, AFL Hall of Famer and 3-time Premiership player Simon Black. And today, Hayley George, AFL Queensland Club Development and Experience Manager. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thanks, Mitch.
Hales, new to the video series. Can you just tell us a little bit about your role and its place in, I guess, the community footy landscape?
Sure. So club development, pretty much my team sits over umpiring, coaching, clubs and volunteers, and we also oversee the women and girls team. Very
good. So we'll dive in a few of those little sections and bits and pieces today. We're obviously going to be centered a little bit more around the data and analysis conducted and how that's going to sort of, I guess, has informed changes to our junior rules. A big part of last year's research project was we actually analysed 36 games across the McDonald's South East Queensland Juniors competition, and as part of that did statistics and analysis on all those competitions as well. So I just want to take us through some of those key findings and how they were used in terms of our project.
Yeah, Mitch, yeah. Look, the AFL Queensland looked at the games as well as the scorecards to gather some intel to make some informed decisions around the decision-making of rules. I guess some of those are, statistics-wise, 1/3 of players had between 0 and 5 possessions in a game. In a 12-a-side game, it was 24% of players, and in an 18-a-side game, it was 35% of players touched the ball between 0 and 5 possessions. That's incredible numbers. 2/3 of players had 10 or less possessions, and 76% of possessions were contested. So I guess if you're not touching the ball much, Mitch, so the engagement, the fun factors, it's going to shrink pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously a lot of that centres around congestion, Hales, and, how do you see congestion in terms of our ability to coach and enjoy the game?
So, yeah, the congestion within a game of youth girls footy, it does make for clean possession that much more difficult. We do see it a lot in the girls' game. Puts a lot of pressure on the player as well, on the ball. So for us, we want to see, obviously, a more free-flowing game.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll touch on a few other little rules that impact on that going forward.
Sorry, Mitch, to butt in, but it's also, our game's got so much contested element as it is anyway, and there's always, I guess, for people out there thinking, we're not going to be able to improve contested footy. I mean, there's so much ability in our game as it is already for contested ball. So by being able to have, which we discussed, less players on the field and I guess more space at times, then that's only going to visually improve the look of the game, and we still be plenty of opportunity to work on contested ball for those players too.
Great.
Absolutely, Simon. So last year in October in 2023, AFL Queensland announced a few changes to our rules for the 2024 season, in particular in the McDonald's South East Queensland Juniors competitions as well. Just a couple of key call-outs. The under-11s mixed age groups, there'll be a reduction in quarter lengths from 15 to 13 minutes. And then the under-13 mixed age group, there's a couple of minor changes. The maximum number allowed on the team sheet is reducing from 22 and down to 20 now as well. So, Hales, how do you see, a couple of those, fundamental changes rolling out on match day?
I see it as a positive change, particularly in that coaching space. For me, less numbers obviously mean that coaches can focus on their core factors of coaching and less on trying to rotate numerous players, basically. So they're back to just concentrating and enjoying the game as a coach.
Yeah.
And from a, I guess, time on field perspective, how do you see that from a parent or, from a playing point of view? How do you see that benefiting, our kids in the game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, stat-wise, we'll also see the average game time increase per player from 82% to 90%. This age group will also reduce the minimum requirement for a game to commence with 12 players to take the field. Previously, it's been 14. And also take, in terms of green space, it'll also take to a smaller field size to accommodate when numbers are lower as well.
Simon, I think it's probably also important there to sort of point out that these rule changes apply to boys and girls. There is no reason to have separate rules for boys and girls, and research has dictated that, obviously. We've had a massive boom in participation, particularly in girls' footy, in Queensland and nationally. And that basically means that we've got girls coming into the sport a lot younger. There's no sort of difference now, whereas the girls would join a little bit later. The boys already had a head start on them. The girls are joining younger. They're at grassroots level. So they're really on a par with each other. So there is no need for us to have separate rules any longer for girls and boys.
Yep.
Absolutely, Hals. So we're just going to go through some more of, I guess, the key rule changes. So Simon, I'll throw it back over to you to talk through, I guess, the additional changes, which I think we'll have pop up on screen as well.
Yeah, that's right, Mitch. The maximum number of players on a team sheet is 14, giving players an extra 11% game time.
That 15s and 17s girls as well, that space. Maximum number on the team sheet reducing from 22 to 19, and that increased game time of 11% in those age groups is pretty significant. Across the board, meaning more game time, obviously. And again, we go back to that coach focus. The coach actually gets to enjoy the game and concentrate on coaching fundamentals and not trying to rotate players through a significant bench. So it'll make a huge difference.
So throughout this entire project, when the AFL's been looking at the new junior rules, we've taken on feedback from Deakin University in terms of the research and literature piece they've done on that. We've conducted our own research in our own backyard on our own specific competitions. And naturally, a big part of any changes that we do is always made in consultation with clubs. Obviously, is the boots on the ground, the people that are engaged in our footy and make it run week to week. They're a huge part of that as well. So in terms of the consultation with clubs, can you just talk us through some of the other rules that we've got up on the screen now, Simon, around, some of those other little tweaks to our competitions? Yeah,
the additional rule changes are the removal of water carriers in the youth competition, the introduction of the last possession rule, and the minor tweak to the 10-goal rule. So the feedback from clubs was positive overall for the removal of water carriers in the youth competition. The clubs also supported the inclusion of a clause for case of extreme heat, where AFL Queensland will allow runners to act as water carriers. The majority of quarters across our youth competitions are only 15 minutes long before everyone gets to break. But of course, players can rotate to get water whenever they like. The removal of water carriers means that the number of volunteers required for clubs is reduced, as well as alleviating any on-field issues that may arise from having extra people on the field.
One of the other big pieces of feedback that we had was in around the last possession rule and its implementation to all youth mixed boys and girls competitions this year. So that was obviously in consultation with clubs as well as our umpiring groups. Now, naturally, for a few years, there's been no boundary umpires in youth footy, and you touched on before, Hales, the want and need to get the game moving quickly and open up the space and allow a bit more free-flowing action. So one of the other ones that we did implement this year was that the last possession rule would come into play. We've seen it some of the elite games levels, in particularly in the AFLW, that they only play that between the arcs, but acknowledging that there's a range of different field sizes, modified fields, different levels of painting, all those bits and pieces, that we thought that it was far easier for our players, coaches, clubs, and our umpires to actually officiate that essentially around the entire ground that last possession would be in play as well. So the 10-goal rule, Simon, do you just want to go into that in a little bit more detail as well for us?
Yeah, so Mitch, there's been an adjustment to the 10-goal rule where the trailing team will automatically start with the ball at a centre bounce circle. Sorry, at the centre bounce. All players must be set up in their field positions until possession has been disposed of. If the margin does become less than 60 points after a goal at any stage throughout the match, then the field umpire will revert back to the ball starting in the centre.
The 10-goal adjustment rule is a real important one. At the end of the day, we want all of our players to enjoy their experience, enjoy their game of footy. And the reality of that is they want to handle the ball as much as possible, as much as the next kid and everything that goes with it. So no one wants to watch an entirely one-sided game, and for parents stood on the sideline, it's disheartening as much as it is for the players that are on the field. So it's important for kids' development. We want them to enjoy that game of footy. So this is a really important change that's going to make a difference.
Very good. Well, thanks, Alice, for jumping on today. Pleasure to have you both on. Of course, if you missed any of the previous episodes, please head to the AFL Queensland YouTube page. As always, there's more information located within our AFL Queensland Juniors Hub on our website as well. But as always, please head to play.afl and find your way to play today.